2018 was an extraordinary year for film. Some of the best science fiction films, animated films, action films, and superhero movies ever made came out this year, and I'm still crying over A Star is Born. But if I had to point to the one film that still got me thinking, it'd be Boots Riley's incredibly weird and provocative debut film, Sorry to Bother You. The film is an absurdist critique of capitalism and tells the story of Cassiuss Green, a telemarketer who sacrifices his identity, his relationships, and his morality in his quest to ascend up the corporate ladder. But it would be unfair to reduce this film simply to the label of anti-capitalist. It does more than point its finger and say capitalism bad. And that's what I want to talk about here. In my view, the film de-emphasizes simple economic arguments as a critique against modern capitalism. It's not just saying Group A isn't getting paid what they deserve while Group B is getting paid more than they deserve. Therefore, there's an injustice. Rather, the thrust of the film is to portray the real psychological effects of these injustices and how the flaws in human nature fuel this system. Wherever you land on the political spectrum, I think you'll find something interesting, unique, and nuanced in this film. So let's dive in and figure out what Sorry to Bother You is all about.
Hey, Mr. D. Emmett Cassiuss Green here. Sorry to bother you. I just...
Hey, young blood.
What up?
Let me give you a tip. Use your white voice.
My white voice.
You want to make some money here? Then read the script with a white voice.
Sorry to Bother You is a movie about deception and self-deception, and also about how one leads into the other. Cassiuss is introduced to us as someone willing to lie to get ahead. He's falsified his resume to get a job as a telemarketer at a company called Regalview. His employer knows he lied, but doesn't care. Later, Cassiuss is promoted to Power Caller, where his job is to sell the labor of people who have signed up for the lifelong labor contracts with a company called Worry Free.
Protesters say Worry Free's method of lifetime labor contracts is a new form of slavery. Worry Free CEO Steve Lift was interviewed on Oprah today.
No. Conclusively, no. Our workers do not sign contracts under threats of physical violence. So therefore, the comparison to slavery is just ludicrous.
But where lying was tolerated before, now it's mandatory.
White voice at all times, here. Yes, I almost forgot.
Soon after, this mask he wears for work begins to seep deeper into his actual identity. Instead of the white voice just being something he can put on and take off, it begins to change his essential nature and worldview. One morning, he forgets that he is using his white voice while in bed with his girlfriend.
Good morning.
No, please no. Stop with that stupid voice, Cassiuss.
Didn't even realize I was doing it.
The persona and his authentic identity have fused into one. I use that word persona here deliberately because it's what psychologist Carl Jung called this phenomenon. Personas are the masks that we wear depending on the situation. He writes that persona is the individual's system of adaptation to or the manner he assumes in dealing with the world. Every calling of profession, for example, has its own characteristic persona. A certain kind of behavior is forced on them by the world, and professional people endeavor to come up to these expectations. Now, personas can be a healthy part of a person's psychology. They are necessary to interact with the world. The problem occurs when society forces us to switch personas against our will, or adopt personas we're uncomfortable with. In interviews, Boots Riley has called the use of the white voice code switching, and in her TED Talk on the subject, Chandra Arthur explains it as such.
Code switching as a concept is really interesting. By definition, it's what happens when people who speak multiple languages alternate between two or more, oftentimes within the same phrase or sentence. In a more colloquial sense, code switching is what happens when people reflexively or subtly change the way they express themselves.
It makes some sense that people should wear a professional persona in professional settings. But since businesses have historically been dominated by white people, professional personas have also been coded white.
Okay, so like...
Hello, Mr. Everett. Cassiuss Green here. Sorry to bother you.
I mean, you got it wrong. I'm not talking about sounding all nasal. It's like sounding like you don't have a care. Got your bills paid, You're happy about your future. You're about ready to jump in your Ferrari out there after you get off this call.
And it's important to note here that the movie also says that even for white people, this voice is a facade to an extent.
It's not really a white voice. It's what they wish they sounded like. It's like what they think they're supposed to sound like.
But the conflation of whiteness with wealth means that people of other backgrounds feel the need to put on this act or risk missing out on opportunities. And for Cassiuss, he must also code switch to an exaggerated black identity for the entertainment of his bosses when called upon to do so.
I don't know, I think he's lying. I think you can rap. I think you should rap. Rap, 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 rap.
So there is a social cost to refusing to code switch, and there is a psychological cost to agreeing to code switch. As Jung wrote, assuming a different persona for too long is dangerous. The danger is that they become identical with their personas, the professor with his textbook, the tenor with his voice. Then the damage is done. Henceforth, he lives exclusively against the background of his own biography. In other words, he is nothing more than society expects him to be based on his profession. In the film, there is one character that represents this danger for Cassiuss. It's this character. The character actually doesn't have a name because it's been bleeped out.
Don't call me Mr. Cassiuss. Call me.
And the bleeping out of his name is significant. The character has so completely offered himself up to the corporation that he has lost his individual identity. He is only a title. So I'm going to just call him Mr. I find the costuming decisions with this character really interesting. He wears an eye patch over his left eye, which symbolizes how he must turn a blind eye on the left eye activist movement and the struggles of the lower classes in general. He shows no solidarity with the working classes because he literally refuses to see them.
Look here, young blood, we don't cry about the shit that should be. We just thrive in what is, and what is opportunity.
For most of the film, Cassiuss has been acting exactly like Mr. He's been steadily associating himself entirely with his professional persona at the risk of losing a more balanced personality. So why does Cassiuss subject himself to this?
Give me that damn cover.
I'm cold.
Stop playing,
You're
Cassiuss.
being greedy.
Don't play with me, Cassiuss.
You don't even need all of those covers. It's not necessary. The whole reason I went to work for Regalview was to make myself more interesting to you.
Just as Cassiuss is lying to his employer and himself, he is also lying to us. We cannot take him at his word about his own motivation in this film, and in fact, the story of the film acts as a gauntlet that strips away all the deceptions and posturing surrounding why someone would want to pursue wealth. His desire at the beginning of the film is instantly apparent. He's dirt poor, he's living in a garage, he can only put 41 cents worth of gas in his car at a time, he has manual windshield wipers. Obviously he wants money to cover his basic necessities, that's his first motivation. It's also the motivation of Squeeze, one of Cassiuss's co-workers who is the most vocal proponent for forming a union.
Because we make the profits and they don't share. If we're gonna give them our day, we need to have enough to cover our basic necessities.
Were Squeeze the main character of the film, that's probably as far as this critique would go. The brilliance of Sorry to Bother You is that its critique of capitalism runs deeper than these simple economic arguments. Because whenever Cassiuss attempts to make an economic argument, the film undercuts him.
God made this land for all of us. And greedy people like you want to hog it to yourself and your family and charge all the rest of us for the right to live.
Me and my family?
Yeah.
Cassiuss, I'm your fucking uncle.
And that's because Cassiuss isn't only interested in basic necessities. From the beginning of the film, he wants a bit of luxury as well. After all, he already owns a car, but
I gave you that car you dropped.
That's a damn bucket.
So motivation number 2 is some comfort and luxury. And the moment he gets some money, he upgrades everything he owns. Cassiuss also has another primal instinct in his need to provide for his family. His uncle is late on his mortgage and might lose his house to the bank and sign up for the worry-free lifelong labor contract. So motivation number 3 is provide for the family and stop all that from happening. As for motivation number 4,
the whole reason I went to work for Regalview was to make myself more interesting to you.
Cassiuss, the old you was way more interesting.
And here's what I mean about Cassiuss lying to us and himself, because clearly this isn't the only motivation, but it is a powerful one that touches on another theme in the movie, an idea that is firmly embedded in our culture that wealth equals sex appeal.
What I try to tell you, this country, you gotta make the money first. Then when you get the money, you get the power. Then when you get the power, then you get the woman.
We see this with how the character Debucheri treats Cassiuss. The moment Cassiuss gets promoted, Debucheri becomes instantly and unsubtly attracted to him.
35% of men who wear pink are more likely to start a franchise.
Is that?
Yeah. Oh.
In the elevator up to the upper floor, power callers like Cassiuss get to listen to motivational clips read in a tantalizing female voice.
Mr. Green, I am the computer, but I wish I had hands to caress your muscular brain.
And the richest man in the movie has women swooning all over him. Scarface's ideology is rampant here. But it's also clearly represented as a corrosive idea that the film rebukes. Cassiuss wants money to keep his girlfriend, Detroit, but she doesn't care about money or about him putting on some grand display of wealth. She's attracted to Cassiuss and later to Squeeze because of their moral character. Detroit embodies the kind of inner self-assurance that Cassiuss so desperately desires, not just in his need to be a more dominant male, but also in his need to forge a legacy, his fifth motivation. In this early scene, we find Cassiuss in a sort of existential crisis. He wants his actions to have a meaningful impact on the world, while Detroit advises him that he should be living authentically.
At some point, this sun will explode and everyone will have died and no one will know what I'm doing, and what I'm doing right now won't even matter.
Oh, baby, it will always matter, okay? Because it matters now. This moment, these moments. When I kiss you, it's not for posterity's sake.
She has this kind of inner peace that is immune from the circumstances of her existence that Cassiuss clearly lacks. So, he wants basic necessities so he can provide for his family, and he wants luxuries so he can impress his girlfriend. And he also wants to leave a legacy. That's what the film tells us he thinks is motivating him. But is that his true motivation? At the midpoint of the movie, Cassiuss has a decision to make. Detroit tells him that she will leave him if he betrays the protesters by going into work that day. This decision comes after he has already successfully attended to the first 4 of the desires we've gone through. He's provided for his family, he's covered his basic needs, he's obtained some luxuries. If he doesn't cross the picket line, he'd keep his girlfriend, and he also has the option to join the protesters and campaign for a higher wage to get the money to sustain those other needs. But in this decision, his true character and motivation are revealed. This is a character undergoing what philosopher Jean-Paul Sarte called bad faith. Bad faith is when we trick ourselves into believing something that is untrue. We're not even aware that we're doing this. Cassiuss is initially uncomfortable with the prospect of selling slavery, but he is able to convince himself that the practice is no more immoral than anything else.
You sell fucking slave labor, Cassiuss.
What the fuck isn't slave labor?
Oh my God, sidestep. You sidestep more than the fucking Temptations.
Up until this point, his use of white voice, of code switching and personas affected his external personality. But in Bad Faith, there is a fundamental shift to his internal identity. To protect his conception of himself as good, he must rationalize the immoral into the moral. And he's biased into doing so because the profession offers him something he's never felt before. Exceptional.
I've been telling everybody how you've been kicking all types of ass at work.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I'm finally feel like I'm good at something. I'm feeling myself. I'm a fucking monster at this.
Through his job, he's found self-actualization, but he simply cannot give up the rush of feeling like he is doing something, anything, better than other people, better than other men. The exhilaration is so great that it motivates the character to abandon everything else he cares about. Or, as Walter White put it,
I liked it.
And so the critique of Sorry to Bother You cuts both ways. It critiques capitalism, yes, but it also critiques human nature and especially these extremely masculine impulses to perform and be rewarded. It shows how these impulses are used to fuel the excesses of capitalism. It also shows how the managers who run these companies are keenly aware of their employees' need for self-actualization, and they have already adapted to it as well.
You are not employees to me. You are team members. We're a family now. You know what that means? It means I lean on you, you lean on me, there's a synergy. And you can feel that energy. I know that you can. People are starting to get emotional, and I love that.
Early in the film, there is a staff meeting at Regalview which contrasts two different management styles. The first is given by this character. His language is loaded up with violent, militaristic metaphors, and his tone implies a clear distinction between the employee and the employers.
You gotta know when to bag 'em and when to tag 'em. Bagging is when you drop the call like a dead body into a bag. You drop that shit.
On the face of it, this may feel like an oppressive management style, but the film suggests it's actually less insidious than what follows, because what follows is less truthful. Debocherry uses softer language and speaks in friendly, kind terms. She attempts to erase the perception that there is a divide between the employees and the employers.
You are not employees to me. You are team members. We're a family now.
Of course, this is a total illusion that they're crafting, and Cassiuss points it out immediately.
Does that mean we get paid more?
No. Okay, but what is capital, right?
The hierarchies still exist, but pretending that they don't is a method of pacification.
The new capitalism is, there's no capitalism here. What are you talking about? You know, it's like, this is not a workplace. This is a beanbag room. And I'm not your boss. I'm your friend who tells you what to do.
We have everything you can imagine. Google really takes care of us.
And it all goes down at Google's main headquarters, aka the Googleplex. One giant funhouse.
The idea here is that in order to retain a workforce, management needs to be able to convince its employees that their needs are being provided for. In the past, management has been able to compensate its employees, but workers are increasingly motivated by the need for self-actualization. They need to feel like they are truly part of something greater than themselves, or doing something positive, whatever. And so this song and dance is played in which we all pretend reality is otherwise. In theory, the employer is providing a secondary value to the employee, and the employee should be grateful for this, thus reducing the likelihood that the workers will agitate for a union. But the moment workers do agitate for a union, the facade drops immediately, and management's real opinions of their workers are exposed.
Fuck you! Fuck you! Fuck you!
This version of friendly, hip capitalism is embodied by the CEO of Worry Free, Steve Lift. In most Hollywood movies, you can tell that the CEO character is evil just by looking at them. They're smarmy, egotistical, and emotionless. In contrast, Steve Lift is this young, strapping, frat boy type guy. He's cool, casual, and disarming. Don't worry about the horse people, who'd want to rebel against this lovable chap?
When I first met the founders, I walked into our office and found Larry Page on rollerblades and Sergey Brin bouncing around on a physio ball.
But just as the workers are forced to wear certain personas, Steve Lift's outward charm is just that, a useful persona, a tool to excuse his immoral practices. And so it should be something that we are suspicious of. People have complicated reasons for wanting to get rich beyond satiating their basic needs. Men especially want to increase their attractiveness to women, and many are seeking the self-actualization that comes with being proficient at something. But to satisfy those needs, we are forced by society to enter into bad faith, forced to adopt multiple personas. For the black community especially, this means code switching between white identities, stereotypically black identities, and their authentic selves. This creates an identity crisis in which the professional persona takes over the authentic personality. Workers also feel guilt over participating in a system that is immoral. To counteract these psychological problems, the management styles at big corporations have fundamentally shifted. They're now aimed to alleviate guilt, make workers feel included and self-actualized so that they don't rebel against the system, and can be more easily exploited monetarily. In the film's conclusion, the billionaire character reveals his plan to turn his lower-level workers into these freaky, half-horse, half-human creatures, equisapiens, literal beasts of burden. Here, the critique of capitalism is at its most obvious. If you're at the bottom of the hierarchy, you must surrender your body and your dignity to the system. But the more interesting critique, the one that we've been talking about, is if you attempt to ascend through the ranks of capitalism, you must sacrifice your inner identity, your individuality, and your morality. In doing so, the film transcends the simple economic argument against our current system, and instead depicts the psychological wound that participating in this system inevitably creates. But thankfully, more than that, it depicts a way out as well. In its conclusion, Cassiuss begins to live a morally righteous life, to live authentically. And the film posits that we must do this on an individual level. We must commit ourselves to opposing injustice, even if this means financial sacrifice. Because once we do, we can become effective leaders of collective movements that have a real chance to change the system. Hey everyone, so if you enjoy my video essays and you're interested in writing your own essays, whether in print or on video, then I recommend checking out Roxanne Gay's new class on Skillshare, and I want to thank Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Roxanne is a writer whose work I've been following for a while now, so it was really exciting for me to see her make a course on crafting personal essays on Skillshare, since it's a topic that is so useful to me specifically. So if you're interested in writing, or in graphic design, or animation, or the hundreds of other fields that Skillshare covers, then give Skillshare a shot. They've got over 20,000 classes to choose from. Just click on the link in the description of this video to check it out. The first 500 people to click that link will get 2 months of Skillshare for free. Thanks for watching everyone, and I want to give a big thank you to my patrons for supporting this channel. Keep writing, everyone.